This quarantine hair situation is getting out of control. It's been 2.5 months since I've had a haircut. I haven't had a job in over 2 months, and I'm starting to let the beard grow out just a little bit. The hair is just taking on a life of its own, and I figured what better opportunity than in the middle of this quarantine to do a little bit of fun portrait photography and document some of this crazy time that we're living in, because who knows when I'm gonna have huge hair like this again. And honestly, I'm kind of starting to love it just a little bit. So why don't we jump into the studio and get a nice dark, moody portrait setup going and see what we can capture. Come on. Welcome to my studio. So we're gonna do a nice, beautiful black backdrop. I've got my main key light set up just above me, about 45 degrees to the left, just above eye level. Camera's gonna be just right at about eye level, shooting at about 80 millimeters. I've got the stool pulled about 3 feet off of the background so that we get a little bit less light spill on the background. And there's a grid on the softbox to keep the light from spilling out and to really just focus it directly on my face. So we're gonna be using a stool to try to create more of a natural portrait. I find that standing portraits tend to be a little bit more presentational, a little bit more kind of in your face, here I am, this is what I'm doing. And when you're seated, I find that the subject is often able to kind of relax and become themselves and just focus on the human behind the eyes. So that's what we're gonna be going for today. Of course, this shoot is gonna be all about the hair. So we're probably gonna have to bring in some additional hair light. I've got my reflector on this side that we're gonna be bringing in to soften up some of the shadows and play around with a little bit of separation from the dark background behind my head and the shadows on the side of my face. The side of my face gets completely lost in shadow and it kind of disappears a little bit. But with bringing a little bit of light bounce back onto this side, you can maybe catch a little bit of a rim light and get some separation off the background. So key light, only light that you need, a little bit of bounce on the dark side. We might bring in additional hair lighting in order to be able to really make this hair pop so we can see it on the black background. But pretty simple lighting setup. That's all we're gonna do for this shoot. So why don't we jump right into it and start taking some shots. So this is our super high contrast look. We've got our main key light up here, very close to the subject, a very wide spread around the subject's face, which should create a softer shadow as it falls off into the shadow here. So it's not like a super hard line. We're getting a nice soft fall off because we have a large light source. But we still have a very dark shadow on this side of my face. And then of course the background behind me is almost completely black, and we'll make that 100% black once we get it into post-production. But in order to soften up the shadow just a little bit and make it maybe a little bit less contrasty, let's start with one photo first. Try a couple different angles. Now, let's try bringing in this reflector. Look at that light we're getting on this dark side now. So you can see without the reflector, look how dark that side of my face is. And now let's bring that in and boom. How does that look? Do we like that look? Is it too commercial? Is it too boring? The other option is that instead of this silver reflector, which is very bright, we could just use a white reflector. I'm starting to think that that might be the best option, but let's try a few with these. The nice thing about being your own subject is that you can see exactly where the reflector needs to be positioned because you can see the light reflecting off of it. So one tip when you're setting up reflectors and things like that is to jump in, be the subject yourself, and look at the light the way it's bouncing off of your main light. Another thing we can do is even bring this further behind us. So we still get a little bit of a shadow on our face, but we're getting some light separation on the edge of my face here that kind of separates where the edge of my face is, so it's not completely lost. We still get some darkness and contrast, but there's a little bit of a highlight right here that separates where my face is and where it ends and where the background begins behind me. Because if it's completely lost in shadow, it's almost like it's just not even there. So this gives us a little bit of detail that makes the photo a little bit more interesting. Let's see how that looks. Right, so one thing I'm noticing is that we're not getting a lot of detail in the hair up here. So how can we get some detail in the hair? We can try bouncing light with the reflector. Let's see how that looks. We move the reflector. Do we see any difference in our hair? all about those angles with the reflector. Try to block it with your hand to kind of see where that reflector is causing shadow. I think most likely we're gonna have to add a hair light. We already have our light up pretty high, which is nice, and that kind of should be illuminating our hair, which let's try to get it as big as possible. The other thing we can do is to add a light directly behind me, which will create a nice silhouette, which will really make the hair pop. So there's a couple things we can experiment with here, but let's just try a couple like this. Let's add in another hair light. All right. I like that. I like the rim light on the hair. I think what we need to do is we need to experiment with a silhouette light coming from directly behind us to see if we can make just a little bit more of this volume that we've got going on here, this crazy quarantine hair, if we can show that a little bit more clearly without losing it into the background behind us. Let's see how that looks. Is our light too high? So I think what we can do is if we can lower the light and just shoot it up a little bit, we can still get that rim light without seeing it coming out around my cheeks. Are these my cheekbones? Around my neck and cheek area. So I'm gonna have to put that on a smaller light stand. Just low enough to fall below my shoulders. Maybe it needs to go just a little bit lower. And then we're gonna point it up at my hair. So does that create just enough? I have this shoulder here tends to drop off. So if I hold that shoulder up, we can block the light. I sit up straight, and are we creating just a little bit of a halo now? We have this light coming from over here, which maybe we can bring more front and center. Try with it right here for now. So hitting the hair right here. Let's get in focus. Focus. Beautiful. So now we have one light directly behind me, trying to create a silhouette, a rim light around the edges of my hair. We have our bounce on this side, that's bouncing light from the main light back into the shadow side of my face. We have one light up above pointing down on my hair, trying to add just a little bit more illumination to the top of my head so we can see what's going on with the hair. And now let's get some big crazy volume going on. And let's see if we can capture this craziness. I want to bring just maybe a little bit less of this reflector. Turn that to its dark side. Ooh, that's maybe a little bit too dark. It's kind of fun. Let's try a couple like that. Definitely like it better. With this bounce, it's just maybe a little bit too much. I'm gonna take the reflector off. We're gonna put on a white bounce instead of this silver bounce. The silver bounce is just a little bit too bright. And not even using the full solid opaque white from the reflector, but we can just use this see-through inside of the reflector that will hopefully bounce even just a little bit less light back from the main light. So we can still get some shadow here, but soften it up just a little bit. And let's see how that looks. So this is without it, you can see how dark it is here. And then we bring the reflector back down at an angle, and you can see how it softens up that darkness on that side. And I think that's just enough. Maybe just like right over there. And voila, I think that looks quite nice. Try a few different looks. Ridiculousness. Next, we're gonna do some some mask looks. You know, I ordered some masks on Amazon about a month ago. They continue to be delayed. So the only masks I have are these masks that I was given for free in Central Park. I was skating through Central Park one day and somebody from the city was just handing out masks. So all I have are these basic white masks. So let's do a couple portraits with that because I think that that's a big part of this story right now. Not only do we have big hair, but we've got the mask on. And that's kind of what life is like for everybody here in New York City this past 2 months now, and who knows how much longer. So let's grab the masks. How does that look? Do I look like something out of some future dystopian video game? I feel like that's kind of what New York feels like right now. What is it like to have people talking to you and you can't see their mouth moving? It's so bizarre. But do we have an opportunity now for whenever Fashion Week comes back? Is mask fashion gonna be the new thing? Are all the models walking down the runway with Dior and Louis Vuitton, are they gonna be wearing masks? And are they gonna have whatever the latest mask design is from these brands? And you're gonna have to buy your mask for $250 or $500 or whatever it is from one of these high-end fashion houses. I think it'd be pretty interesting. I think we might have a new fashion moment for 2020. We'll see how that goes, but let's do a couple portraits with just this mask right now. Enough of that. I think we have a nice, fun portrait photo shoot here. I don't see any need to do any other lighting setups or any other background setups. A white background might have made it easier to just make the hair pop, but I love the dark look. I really want to go for the dark look for this. So that's gonna wrap it for today. But if you stay tuned for tomorrow, I'm gonna show you my workflow for how I take these photos, I drop them into Lightroom, I organize everything from start to finish the way I edit them. So if you're interested in seeing that, come back for tomorrow. I'd really appreciate it if you could leave me a comment, let me know how you found this video, if you thought it was useful, if there was anything that you thought I could be doing differently. I would love that feedback. Drop me a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel, I'm going to be making videos like this, trying to do about 3 times a week right now throughout quarantine, how I run my photo business, how I organize all of my projects, everything I'm working on. Yeah, I'd love to see you come along for the ride and let me know what you're working on. I hope that you are safe and well in the pandemic, and I will see you here tomorrow.